What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. And alright soldiers, and in this video we're going to be going over the Rosemont Bushiroad Championship Series 25-26. I wanted to focus on this event because this is going to be the first event since set 11 comes out, so this is going to be kind of what the top decks for set 11 are going to be like. We all know Kagero really dominated Vanguard and everything, and we got really tired of it, I'm not gonna lie to you. And it's been a minute since I did the last time for an event report, because the last time I'm pretty sure I did it was like in set 7, and the set 7 had the same 3 decks, and I was like, okay, I'm tired of making these event reports if they're the same 3 decks in the same format. And I'm not going to lie to you, set 7 was a very stale, like same 3 deck format, and just making content for it was pretty exhausting for me. But of course in this one, set 11 really does feel refreshing because I've already built like maybe 2 or 3 decks from it, and I've played a couple matches, and I'm not gonna lie to you, set 11 does feel pretty refreshing. So after the Seaside Memory set, we're not gonna have like a big huge meta update or anything like that, but when we get into that combined sets with set 11 and 12 together, or excuse me, set 12 and 13 together, then that means we're going to be exploring like different decks in the format that people are going to be playing for these events. So I'm really excited to talk about the stuff for set 11, and when set 12 and 13 come around, I'm gonna be excited to talk about that as well. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and break down this event. All right, so look at the spread here. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I do not really like it when they don't put the percentages here because I can't really tell like what decks are doing what. But just seeing how it was, Card 5 Vanguard had a big presence, so I'm assuming that has to be Kagero. So it seems like Kagero, Abyss, and Runecraft are still one of the biggest hitters there. And then probably right after that we have Swordcraft because they have Wasteland Sword with that amulet that has Storm that's going to continuously swing, which is very big for the deck. And then of course we have the outlier decks that are going to be the Forestcraft, Dragoncraft, and Havencraft, which, you know, they do have nice engines and I do think the decks work pretty well, but I don't think they have the skill ceiling like the rest of the decks we are going to be seeing the majority of this video. Alright, so moving on to our top 3 placers here. So we have G Gordon, Karate Kid, and then we have Gosu Nim. And I know at our locals, I think we did talk about G Gordon. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing G Gordon play at the World's Finals. Can't exactly remember what deck Gordon was playing, but I know it was pretty spicy and Jordan won. So I'm glad to see that he had some success in getting first place here. I'm pretty sure, you know, Rune is definitely one of the best decks, so I'm pretty sure G Gordon was still playing Rune. Oh yeah, and just like I predicted, G Gordon was playing Rune and Earthright. I think Earthright is just still like the best Runecraft deck to play. I know people say Spellchain is like right under it with Kuon and everything, but I do think that deck has the potential to break. And there are situations where you need to be looking for Merlin. And if you don't have Merlin in that game that you do play, which, you know, those are situations that do happen, you absolutely lose, and you really do need consistency when playing these Shadowverse Evolved decks. All right, but I'm not gonna lie to you, soldiers. Earthright hasn't really changed too much. We did get a couple new cards. I'm pretty sure we got Magical Augmentation, which did come out in set 11, which is pretty good to being able to deal 4 damage to a follower while drawing a card. And then, of course, we have the Arcane Arcanist, which is actually able to give any one of our followers the Rush, Bane, or Drain, which is very vital when we're going in for a Strike Form Golem if we manage to spawn one out, to go ahead and give it that Bane to go ahead and have some hard removal to him. And personally, this deck is kind of teched out, I'm not gonna lie to you. We have the Zilgania, Oh Great World, which is just pretty good removal and good heal, which is going to really help us make up for the fact that we don't have the Gingerbread House at 3 anymore. Earthright took that hit, and it's still topping. So it's not like the Gingerbread House was really like pushing it like forward. It just had a lot of heal to it. So outside of like healing for like maybe 9 in one turn, if you're able to do it, since this card did cost only 1 play point, I'm glad they did limit it down to 1 so the deck doesn't have as much healing. And that's like, that brings up another point for the terms of like nerfing decks. It seems like these nerfs aren't really killing the deck, more so like just slowing down its momentum than what it used to have. Like Kagero Dragon only got Vortex Dragon set to 1, and then we had the fixing of the wording of the errata and everything. But you know, Kagero Dragon still had its format and it was still topping. So the fact that we're able to get rid of Gingerbread House and get it down to 1 doesn't really stop the momentum of the deck. Alrighty, and the last point I wanted to bring up for the deck is I actually was not super informed on the Pure Shot Angel. I'm pretty sure I talked about it in a breakdown video before, but this card is pretty vital. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good bronze card. So if your opponent goes for the Vortex Dragon turn, you're able to play this card on tempo because you're going to be going to 6, especially if you're going first. You're actually able to go to turn 6, play Pure Shot Angel, deal 3 damage to that Vortex Dragon, and then evolve it, deal the rest of the 3 so you can take care of the Vortex Dragon, and then you're able to deal 3 to face. And this really can come in handy with the Ancient Alchemist, which is actually going to be helpful in terms of like burning your opponent, because dealing them 3, if your opponent doesn't heal that next turn and you go for a bigger turn next turn for the Ancient Alchemist, you're able to start burning them for more damage, so you can go ahead and get a head start on that burning damage with the Pure Shot Angel. But yeah, this is a pretty good deck that has like things for every like situation, so the Foss is able to get you whatever amulet that you need out of your deck and putting it into your EX area, giving you the versatility of like removing, healing, or being able to bring back a follower and stuff like that. So there's lots of things going on with Earthright. And I really do like the splash of the Zelgenia O Great World, because if you're like running on your back end, being able to advance this card to go ahead and straight up end the game is pretty good. Yeah, so congratulations to G Gordon for getting first place with Earthright Rune. I'm not surprised that Earthright is still doing well right now, and I hope you're actually able to do well in our World's Finals this year. All right, and then next up we have Karate Kid's Swordcraft deck, and this is Wasteland Sword. All right, so as a content creator, I do want to let everyone know that this deck is very expensive. Like the Cynthias and the Ralmias, of course, are very expensive, but we are actually like a week away until you're actually able to pick up all the reprints for these cards like Ralmia. Now, if you want the, Celia Sky Commander, you might have a little bit harder time picking up those Evos. But the unevolved one is going to get reprinted too, so, look out for that when you are wanting to pick up Sword around that time. If you haven't already picked up Sword, that is. Now, if you're already like a seasoned vet and you've already picked up all the Swordcraft cards, this is definitely one of the decks to be playing for the format, just because it's just very strong with this amulet. But I still think the biggest downside to this deck is that you do need Bunny and Baron, but you do have these backup cards like Ralmia that says, hey, as long as you're able to fill up your board with followers, you're able to evolve, get some big storm in, and when you get into the late game, having that big storm is going to really matter. But I do think the deck is a pretty solid deck as long as you have all of the cards, and I think even outside of not even having all of the expensive cards, the deck can still be pretty solid. You're probably not just going to see as much results because we have these more aggressive cards that are in the deck. But personally, what I am enjoying for the deck is that we are running the Not Nots. This is just a pretty solid card running into the format set 11. Just having the way to just remove an ability from a follower, it can't attack, it's engaged. You have a turn to just kind of look at it, and of course if they deal with Not Not, that sucks. But just being able to box a follower for 0 play points and then having your opponent lose all its abilities, especially if they're generating some value off of one card that they're keeping reserved, having the Not Not in your deck for Swordcraft is just pretty vital. But yeah, all in all, congratulations to Karate Kid for getting 2nd place here at Rosemont. I think this was a pretty good event to go ahead and secure your invite, or see what set 11 is going to look like, because I know the rest of the metas are going to be a little bit more confusing because we're going to be in a very rushed set, which is what's going on for Shadowverse Evolve right now. So if you're getting into Shadowverse Evolve, we've only got 2 more sets until we're kind of rushed, and then we start to slow down when we get into next year's set. Alrighty, and in 3rd place we have Gosu Nim's Swordcraft deck, which is Spartacus Sword. Alright, so personally my favorite deck for Swordcraft, just because it has Spartacus, our brother, and this deck is just absolutely amazing. So the deck literally says, I don't care how much you heal, I don't care how much damage I need to do to you, I don't care how much damage you do to me, as long as we're still in the game and I manage to have 1 or less cards in my deck, I straight up win the game. So yeah, I'm absolutely a sucker for these alternative win cons, because it says I don't have to play the game how you want to, you have to take my life, I don't, I'm just going to be drawing cards, which any card player just enjoys to do, is to draw more cards, because I've played those games where it's like, hey, you have no maximum hand size, keep drawing cards. Drawing cards just feels like adding money to your bank account. So when you're just constantly drawing cards and filtering cards out of your hand and just making sure your opponent can still play the game, but is having a hard time playing the game, of course, because you're going to be being very defensive and removing multiple things off the field. So I really like all the key parts that they hit in this deck. All right, so looking at the list here, so in this version we have Not Not, which is very important just because we want to play defensive and removing cards off of our opponent's fields with the Tyrant's Order. And then we also have the Not Not's Henchman, which is also going to help us get 2 bodies onto the board, and then also drawing a card, which is helpful too for our deck, so we can go ahead and help thin our deck out. All right, so one thing that I did notice while peeking over at this deck is that I actually see that there isn't a Paradise Vanguard. So Paradise Vanguard on the unevolved side isn't really going to do anything crazy for this deck, just because we're not going to have enough angel cards into our cemetery. But the evolved is actually going to be pretty vital to deny our opponent the value and resources that they need, just because we're going to be banishing those followers, they don't get those last words. And seeing as 1st place was Earthright Rune, being able to take care of that Riley and making sure that it doesn't hit the field on turn 6 is pretty good too, because we know on turn 6, or I'm not even going to say on turn 6, when they pay those 6 play points to give that Riley Storm, is going to hurt a whole bunch, just because we're not going to have a good response, because we don't run quicks that much in this deck unless we're going to stack up on the Vanguard quick spell and we're able to have the 4 cards that we need in response to dealing with this card. But I do think that the Paradise Vanguard is like a card that works and doesn't work for the deck. All right, so explaining myself. So when you go for the Altered Plane Arbiter, you're definitely going to call 1, because this is a 1-cost Spartacus. So when dealing that, or when doing your fanfare here, you're going to call 1. And I'd say, I don't even want to give a percentage, but I'd say most of the times I usually do hit my Paradise Vanguard, and that really does hurt because I usually only get a maximum of 3. So being able to hit the top 5 and then getting 5 is going to be amazing, because you're going to deal 5 to the board, and then you're also helping mill your deck. But not seeing those, or seeing those Paradise Vanguards into your cemetery when milling, does really hurt this card, Altered Plane. All right, so I can understand why Paradise Vanguard is not in the deck, because it really does like hurt to clash that with the 1-cost and Altered Plane Arbiter. But I do think that the evolve is pretty vital, so if you do want to go in that route with the Paradise Vanguard, I would understand that too. But yeah, congratulations to Gosu Nim for actually topping with Spartacus Sword. I do think that this is a toppable deck. This is an affordable deck too, so if you want to play Swordcraft and you don't want to get into the expensive side with Wasteland, or you can still play Wasteland, of course, and not, you know, shell out all that money for those cards, because we are going to get those reprints. But if you do like playing those alternative win con decks that said, hey, you know, I'm going to do a game plan. If you're able to beat me before I'm able to finish my game plan, good for you. But I'm going to be playing very defensive and have lots of removal for you so we can stay in the game a bit longer. But mind you, I think the other thing outside of your opponent sitting across from you is time, because if you take too long in your turns, you're going to get that double loss. So make sure you're playing in a moderate amount of time, because definitely getting the double loss in these Bushy Road events really does suck. All right, so here are the top 8 placers. So congratulations to everyone. We only did the top 3, so congratulations to the fellas in top 3. But the rest of you that were able to top in top 8, you know, if you want to reach out, do a deck list, talk about your decks, feel free to. I am open to doing interviews and stuff like that. We need to get Shadowverse Evolved more on the face of the map. And I really do like this game. I do want to talk about it more. I know I haven't been the socialist when it comes to collaborating with other content creators, but I have met the other content creators and they're amazing. I love them. I'm glad that they're making content for the game too. So if any of you had a spicy list that you were able to top with, or you had a pretty solid list that got into top 8 that wasn't represented because they only cut off a top 3, then, you know, reach out to me. Of course, I have my socials down below if you want to reach me. There's also the Discord too, if you want to really just talk in the Discord too. I know it's like kind of dead there because Shadowverse Evolve is kind of in a weird spot. I don't think we had as much players as we did before we got the announcement of the accelerated schedule, but we are still getting new people in, so I really do want to welcome all the new people with good content, good decks that everybody's able to play, because I do think finding out what decks to play and how these decks are built are a little bit harder to find. But alrighty, soldiers, that is it for this video. So some last minute updates. I am going to be working on the rest of the breakdown. Look forward to the Vincent Runecraft, because that's going to be the next one. Personal fan for Runecraft, so expect the video to probably be a little bit longer than the rest of them, because I've been trying to cook with the Mages deck, and with Vincent, the Mages deck actually is going to work. So I'm actually very excited to talk about that alternative version of the deck later on in the set. I will try. I don't want to make any promises of, yeah, I will do this. I say it constantly, and I'm not able to get to it because life gets in the way. So I'm glad you soldiers are very understanding in terms of me putting out these videos. And shout out to everyone who's actually still around from like set 1 or 2. I can't remember when I started this channel, but shout out to everybody who is still giving love to the content. And shout out to everybody who's still giving love to Shadowverse Evolved to this day. And alright, soldiers, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you're safe in whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah, TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do. Just to get you away. What I got to do.